So good afternoon. I'm Adrienne Kaeppler, the curator of oceanic ethnology here in the anthropology department. And I'm going to talk about the Barkcloth Conservation Project. And as noted in my title, the project includes two important parts, research and conservation, and each of these has two parts. The research includes my own field research and research arising from the conservation. And secondly, the conservation includes the conservation of our collection of barkcloth from the U.S. exploring expedition, 1838 to 42, under Captain Wilkes, one of the founding collections of the Smithsonian, and bringing in community scholars from Polynesia to assist them in recovering knowledge of lost processes in the making of barkcloth and its conservation. Now, my own research began in Tonga some time ago and continues. Most barkcloth in Polynesia is derived from the inner bark of the paper mulberry plant, which is stripped from the plant stem and the outer bark removed from the inner bark and discarded. And other plants used are breadfruit, banyan, and mamaki, which is a species of Pipturus. The soaked inner bark is beaten with a wooden beater into long strips, which are pasted or felted together and decorated with dye, usually made from a tree bark. And these differ in West Polynesia and East Polynesia. And my field research has dealt with the processes of making the barkcloth to textile and the dyes, which have changed over time, the aesthetics of the finished product, and how it is used. Now in Tonga, the making of the barkcloth still continues, but its use is changed and dead in many other islands. They have just stopped making it. Now, the collection of the barkcloth at the Smithsonian is large and has important and unique pieces from the U.S. exploring expedition, which includes 149 pieces, of which 68 were designated that needed to be conserved in our initial survey. Now, many of these pieces are in bad condition, and 45 of them have never been unfolded because of the conservation problems, and thus were not available for viewing or research. We applied for a CCPF grant, which was successful, and we've hired specialist conservators who have begun work and so far have successfully completed about 30 pieces. Now, we've been fortunate to have assistance from other departments within natural history. Don Hurlbert has been doing the difficult photography of the large pieces from the balcony in the street next to Pod 1 at MSC. And working with the Hawaiian material, we have encountered the problematic mamaki plant. This has brought a research project arising from its conservation. That is, what is the process of making the cloth from mamaki, which must be considerably different from using paper mulberry? Why does it deteriorate differently, and how can it be successfully conserved? We also need to know more about other plants used in the other islands, especially breadfruit and banyan, and it's difficult to tell the differences between them once they are made up into a barkcloth piece. And how should the conservation be altered for each of them? It is also ethnographically important to find out which plants were used, as some of them are known to have been used only for sacred purposes. Now, we're attempting to answer some of these questions by DNA with Ken Wurduck, as you see here, from botany. Rusty Russell helped us with herbarium to examine the plants that were also collected on the USXX. And in the Coleman Library, there are books with samples of barkcloth from various museums and various time periods. Now, in the meantime, the conservators are working away on this detailed work, which takes infinite patience. I continue my field research. I learned how to make barkcloth from the aerial roots of the banyan tree in the island of Mangai on the Cook Islands in 2010, where the women are in the process of reconstructing how to make the cloth, which died out in their island a century ago. They are now planting paper mulberry and are hoping to reconstruct that process. 2 or 3 women from Mangaia and Atiu in the Cook Islands will be joining us as community scholars in 2013. Last year in Tonga, I found that a different dye is now being used, as the preferred coca tree has become rare and almost impossible to find. They have started to use mangrove bark, which gives this very orangey color and quite different from the subtle brown that the Tongans like much better. I'll be attending a royal wedding in Tonga this May, focusing on old and new traditions on use and presentation for this important event. We continue to do our research on mamaki, and 2 Hawaiian community scholars will be joining us for 10 weeks, starting next week. Barkcloth making in Hawaii died out about a century ago, and several women have been working on the reconstruction of the process. They'll be learning here how to conserve the paper mulberry barkcloth, and also we will be experimenting with mamaki to see what the problems are. And finally, we will be working with the Textile Conservation Project just starting at the Hunterian Museum in Glasgow, Scotland. And we'll be sharing our knowledge with them when the head of the Hunterian Lab comes to consult with us in March.
Yeah. Where are the largest collections of barkcloth, and do the cultures that originally made the barkcloth have a fair proportion of classical pieces, or is it mostly in foreign institutions?
The biggest collections are at the Bishop Museum in Hawaii, where I used to work. That's where I became interested in it. We have a quite large collection. British Museum has a large collection, also in the Hunterian Museum in Glasgow. What was the second part of the question?
I wonder, what fraction of the really classical stuff still belongs to the cultures that made it?
You mean still there within their
Yeah.
local? Very little. Most of it has been collected, most of the old material has been collected and is now in museums in Europe primarily and in the US.
And since you were so much on time, we'll have one more question. Where was it? Over there.
I just wanted to know if there was something that occurred 100 years ago that seems to have caused the extinction of this cloth making. Sounds like a lot of these cultures stopped 100 years ago.
Yes, most of the places in East Polynesia, that's Hawaii, Central Polynesia, Tahiti, Cook Islands, and so forth, stopped about 100 years ago. But they're still making barkcloth, especially in Tonga, where it's very important ceremonially, and fortunately that's where I work. They still make it, some in Fiji, some in Samoa, and a little bit in Uvea Futuna.